Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, so this is the title. This is the work that I've been doing in recent years, and I really will begin. Hang on a minute. Yes, so I want to begin with the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the title of this whole event is Online Children's Rights, and that's really, I just want to kind of make explicit how EU consent and, of course, child's rights advocates think about children's rights in reference to the convention. And then I want to position age assurance and age verification in the larger context of a child rights framework. So, if you like, this is the conscience bit that Ian was referring to earlier. When we are trying to get age assurance right for children, we are trying to think about all of their rights understood holistically. So this is a very busy screen because children, as you can see in the convention, which all countries here concerned, apart from the US, have ratified. The convention has 41 substantial rights for children, 42 in fact, and some on how to make them real, how to operate them. So the point about there are many things to say. As I said, countries worldwide have ratified the convention. It means that they have promised to incorporate into their national law, policy, and practice the provisions of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And the Convention on the Rights of the Child has to be understood holistically. So we have to somehow try to keep in mind all the different rights at once. And that's something that we've been really emphasising also with Abhilash Nair and Simone van der Hoff and Maria Stoilova and others as we've kind of worked with colleagues through this process. So the convention was adopted in 1989, as you'll know, the year that the World Wide Web was given by Tim Berners-Lee to the world, and it's abstract. It applies to all children in all circumstances. So the recent and significant innovation in this space is General Comment number 25 by the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, which says how children's rights apply in relation to the digital environment. And I and colleagues were privileged to work with the committee in preparing this document. And it involved a lot of consultation around the world with experts and also with children. Children were very convinced that their rights apply online as offline, even that they have a right to be online, and very articulate in many ways about all those different rights and how important it is for them to be online, which they consider their medium, their space. Experts, as you can imagine, and stakeholders had more complex, not more complex, more contradictory things to say, because they are very worried about how we manage this balance of child protection and child participation. And I think AV and age assurance are kind of shaping up in a way to be one of the tools that sits at that pivot point and helps everybody, stakeholders, the public, NGOs, governments, and so forth, find the balance for particular content in particular contexts for particular children. And that's, I think, what we're when we say we want a child rights approach, I think that's part of what we have in mind. Age verification itself is mentioned in the general comment just once, and I've put the quote up there in paragraph 114. And it was a carefully phrased sentence, whereas you can see the word robust in relation to age verification is emphasized. It should be used to prevent children from acquiring access to products that are illegal for them to own or use. And we might be thinking of uses of AV which go beyond blocking the access to illegal content. I just wanted to flag that isn't there in the general comment 25. And so even though many of us, I think, would want children to be protected from legal but harmful, as it were, the importance of a child rights framework is even more important there than in relation to illegal content. And then the second sentence, I think everyone here is committed to, but I just wanted to be crystal clear that it's also there. These systems must be consistent with data protection and safeguarding requirements. And those are unpacked in other parts of the document and also must be really understood holistically, including, for example, children's ability to seek help online when they're in trouble. In ways that are not impeded by AV or parental consent or any other kinds of impediments that might actually stand in the way of necessary help. So when I presented to this conference last year and we talked about our evidence review that we'd done on the ways in which AV, age assurance and parental controls are being used in families' everyday lives, we came to these conclusions. And Maria Stoilova in a little while is going to talk more specifically about what we've argued and what the evidence shows for parental controls. I just wanted to note that at the end of that work, we'd kind of come up with 6 findings, 6 arguments about how children's rights and age assurance are specifically linked. And I presented them before, but you can see that emphasis on a holistic approach, on a proportionate approach, one that respects all of children's rights, not just putting protection in the context of the others, the importance of consulting children, and what I think may still be a challenge, but perhaps the technologists are solving it, which is that question of children's evolving capacity. How do we get to make age-appropriate judgments about content, conduct, and other kinds of access at a more granular level than treating children as those between 0 and 18? And really, the whole, one of the really crystal clear points of the Convention on the Rights of the Child is that idea that children are agents, and our point, what we have to do, is enable their agency as appropriate to the context. That's always the kind of driving motivation. And then there was quite a lot in the research and in the discussions we've had about discrimination, and if you like, about the assumption of who is the user. What is really happening at home in the living room or in the bedroom or at the bus stop when you're going online? What's that setting? Does it assume for the child that the engaged adult or parent is kind of by their side, ready to provide necessary information? Does it assume that all children can kind of read and access detailed information quickly? Does it assume that all children can see, or that they don't have disabilities that might provide an impediment? So, each of these has a whole lot of things packed into it. That's where we got. So I wanted to kind of now come back from these 6 points specifically about AV to that wider, more holistic framework of children's rights, because the product managers and product developers and designers that we're talking to when we say you need to build in that moment of AV have got lots of other requirements on them as well, lots of other expectations about how they design responsible technology, how they design for children, and age assurance has to find its place in that wider framework. So I'm going to end by mentioning the work that we've just completed at the Digital Futures Commission with the Five Rights Foundation, where we tried to see all the different kinds of tools and technologies and policies important for children's rights in a digital context and kind of put them together in a toolkit that product managers and developers could actually use. And to that end, we did 2 kinds of consultation. And one was a consultation with children. This is British children. And we asked them to talk about their rights, different rights in different digital contexts, and kind of think for themselves and tell us what are the important design features or opportunities they wanted, or impediments and barriers that they experience. And as you can see, we tried lots of techniques, and actually we learned a lot from them. We also talked to product developers and designers about how it is that they approach the task of making sure that their products are do respect children's rights. And they told us lots of things about the kind of the messy and iterative and sometimes agile and often quite complicated processes by which in developing a product, there is that light bulb moment when someone says, yes, but will this actually respect children's rights? Do I even know what children's rights mean? Do I know how I'm going to balance protection and privacy and participation and so forth? They told us about the Design Council's Double Diamond, which you can see here, which is in effect to say there are kind of 4 ideal moments when they might and arguably should think about children's rights in the moment of kind of identifying the problem that they're going to meet, producing their design brief, trying out solutions, and then delivering the product. We could probably map the development of AV technologies themselves onto this double diamond. And then finally, we mapped the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the provisions of General Comment 25 onto a design guide, which includes resources for designers, guidance, explanations of what we mean by child rights in the digital context. And it's designed as a toolkit. The top right there is a link to the microsite, but there's also a report if you like linear prose like I do. You can access it either way. It all hinges around 11 principles. And I think the point I'll end on is to say, I would love you to think about these 11 principles. That is what is encompassed by child rights. It's a lot. And in a way, age verification, age assurance has some connection, something to say about each. So the first, which we've discussed a lot behind the scenes in the EU consent project, is the principle of equity and diversity, which encompasses quite a number of rights from the convention, but could be translated into a question for product developers to ask themselves, do we treat children equally, fairly and support vulnerable children? What can we do? And then the design guide kind of takes them forward from there. What do you need to do? What would be good practice? What are the examples? Are children's best interests a primary consideration in product design? I think those following age-appropriate design codes will know that the idea of best interests, which is Article 3.1 of the Convention, is becoming a kind of a means of thinking holistically about children's rights, and it applies both to AV and also to all the products that could use AV as a means of ensuring children's best interests. Have children been meaningfully consulted in developing your product? I would ask that now of any product designer. Is the product age appropriate? Okay, so here we see a principle that is that age assurance is really kind of made for, and indeed, how are we even going to respect this principle without it is an interesting question. We found in our talk to product developers and designers, they didn't all know what the relevant laws and policies were. So we've tried to map those for them. Participation. Are children blocked from participating more widely, or do they have the opportunity to participate in and through digital environments and digital publics? It's a really crucial one. Privacy, I think we have been debating already today the challenge of privacy by design as really important for the AV context. Safety, of course, is in a way the purpose of developing AV, and safety by design. So you can see that child rights by design is a kind of a combination of privacy by design, safety by design, security by design, but not just the negatives, also participation, also well-being, also development, and so forth. So here are my final principles. There are 11 altogether, and together they cover the range of the convention on the rights of the child. So I will end there and say thank you very much. I look forward to questions.
Thanks a lot, Sonia. So I can see one physical hand. Are you watching for in the chat? Okay, yeah.
Hi, Sonia. Tony Allen here. If you can see me and hear me. Just a quick question, really, about the development of sort of products and services and safety by design from the outset for children. Obviously, we're entering the next frontier of AI and generative AI and the use of large language processing and stuff like that. But one of the features of the protections that we put in place for children are that, generally speaking, the language they use, the material they use, the things that they see are not on open internet, openly available, and so therefore not available to generative AI to use as part of its development of the products. And I just wonder if you would comment on how you see the use of AI and generative AI actually enhancing and supporting the development of products for children in the future. Not just for adults and that whole servicing the needs of children as users online.
Thank you for the question, Tony. It's a challenge. Sometimes I think that large language models either are based on children's data without consent and taken inappropriately, or they're not based on children's data, and that means that they won't understand children and their lives and their needs. So we're kind of the AI moment, we could say, is wrong whichever way it goes. And I think what informs what goes into the input of the model is a challenge that I hope all of this incredible amount of global discussion about AI ethics and principles is going to resolve. Because if we can't find an ethical way of including children's data in the large language models, then we have a serious problem. But I think the output side is a challenge too. And I'm a social scientist, and when I review the evidence on is personalized education or personalized learning the answer? Are AI chatbots for depressed kids really providing a solution to their mental health? There are so many uses of AI for children that seem potentially exciting, but actually the evidence is not very strong as yet. And I think we haven't worked out, and perhaps we should consult children, on what really could be the benefits, because at the moment it feels, from a child rights perspective, a bit like a tool looking for a solution rather than responding to genuine needs and challenges that children themselves face. And that's not even commenting on the risk side of how AI is being abused against children's interests.
Against the whole world, it's looking like it.
I have to limit my scope.
Are any of these large language models actually obtaining anybody's consent before they scrape the data and use it and build it in?
Well, if it were clearly for the public good, and that was the argument, we would be able to make a balanced decision. I haven't yet seen that being argued out in relation to children, for example.
No. I've got my secret career as a pop star to think about, and all of those rights I'm being deprived of because AI is nicking everything. Thanks very much, Sonia. That was great, and hope you get better soon.
Thank you.
And I hope I see you soon.
Absolutely.